So Better Boards, Better Communities, looking at week 3, lesson 6, your legal and financial oversight. So today we're focusing on oversight and in particular finances. In some of the research that I've done, this is the greatest concern of board members. The whole notion of stewardship, financial management, and fiduciary responsibility of the individual board member as well as the board as a whole. So again, going to your 4 core and unique responsibilities, we're focusing here especially on monitoring, evaluating, and auditing. So the reality is, in spite of what a lot of people would like to think, your not-for-profit is a business. It is a corporation. Corpus is the Latin word for body, but it's not for profit. I don't like to use the term nonprofit. It seems to me like that's like General Motors used to be. They were nonprofit. We're not in it to make a profit and thus nonprofit when we don't succeed. We're not for profit. Or I think more positively, we're for impact. Now, some research has suggested that the difference between the for-profit sector and the not-for-profit sector is that in the for-profit sector, they're obviously for profit. Well, as I've just said, we're not for profit. We're actually all about our mission, and our mission becomes critical. And the steps we take in achieving our mission, achieving sustainable resources, for example, having a mission that focuses on what we do, for whom, how well in our communities, and making a difference. And it has to be pretty specific so that it is unique to us, not like the Hard Rock Cafe, which is love all, serve all, save the planet, which actually could apply to a whole lot of not-for-profits, but it doesn't really distinguish you. So what is your mission? And that's what makes the difference. So if we have our mission and our goal is to achieve that mission in the context of our legal and financial responsibility, then we're accountable. We've got a legal framework. We've discussed this earlier, the importance of legislation, knowing what is expected of your primary funder if you have one, your constitution, bylaws, and of course the importance of knowing your key success factors. And everyone around your table should know what they are, and they should be written, and they should be monitored, evaluated, reported, and it should be very transparent. What are your key success factors, and how well are you doing in achieving them and moving towards accomplishing your mission? And then financial stewardship. So in terms of auditing performance, you have your key success factors. They've been enumerated, you agree on them, they're written down, they advance your mission, they're actionable, they allow you to say no to all the proposals that come before you. And statistics about your services are really important, but we need to think beyond the numbers. For example, let's just break things down in terms of auditing performance into inputs, how much money you're given, for what reason, your outputs, the number of people who use your services, those statistics we just mentioned, your outcomes, the effect that you have on individuals in providing those services to the people who take advantage of them, and of course, your impact on their community. So we're looking at your return on investment. And although that's a business or corporate term, it really does make a difference because your funders have choices. They can put money into different agencies, different services. So what is your return on investment? Now, use is measured in numbers, but effect is measured in benefits and your impact on the community. And I might just be a bit tangential here and say it also affects how we position ourselves in the community and how we market ourselves. Think of a gymnasium, a fitness center. They don't advertise that they're clean, that they've got 4 treadmills or 40 treadmills, that they provide you with a towel. But they talk about the benefits to you personally and the impact on the health of the community. They've even morphed from calling themselves gyms to fitness centers. And as a consequence, we need to think about how we position ourselves by the benefits we provide to individuals in the community, and also make sure that we're measuring those. Now, keep in mind reasonable time commitments as well. You can spend an awful lot of time measuring, evaluating, reporting, presenting results, where the time invested in collecting the information is much more than the results themselves. So make sure that you're always looking at the time required as well. And you're also looking at efficiency measures for your organization as a whole. So looking at performance, looking at measuring, monitoring, evaluating, reporting, programs and services, and now the key for today, financial stewardship, and especially financial literacy. Financial management is one of the core pillars of your organization's health. If this is handled badly, even with well-intentioned board members, it could and indeed has resulted in the demise of an organization. So the key components of a financial management framework and process are accounting, reporting and managing metrics, and policy and process that support those two, accounting and reporting and managing metrics. And keep in mind that when you look at financial management and stewardship, it's not just finances, it's every other part of the organization as well. By way of example, one of the key indicators of potential corruption is when somebody doesn't take their vacation. And we tend to think, oh, they're so committed to the organization, they haven't taken a vacation in 8 years. Well, often it's when they take a vacation and someone starts looking for something or asking questions that fraud is uncovered. So you need to make sure that you have a comprehensive look at financial management. Now, in terms of transparency and accountability, in smaller organizations, a board member may be the treasurer, solely responsible for financial management. However, the board as a whole and each board member, each board member has a fiduciary responsibility. You cannot fob this off on the one person around the table who's a bookkeeper or an accountant or a chief financial officer in an organization. You are responsible. So every decision you make is actually reflected in the financial statements, such that the financial implications need to be considered in each decision. Now, for this to work, financial reporting must be presented in a way that each board member, irrespective of financial background, can understand and participate with confidence. And this is where financial literacy becomes important. And you need to know how to look at those statements and understand them. And if you don't, get your chair or your chief executive officer to get you some basic training. It is not rocket science. It's just a question of seeing and understanding the red flags. So as but one example, this is a true and recent story of a not-for-profit that was brought to my attention. The organization was running at a 12% loss, and they had no operating reserves. They'd cut everything they could and were unable to find additional efficiencies. Now, a new treasurer repackaged the financial statements by organizing the revenue and expense or profit and loss statements by each unit, each program, each service, and removed all financial jargon. It then became apparent where and why the organization was losing money. And the board rather simply and unanimously made the decisions to correct the shortfalls. Now, this framework is now used for their business plan, and they review the budget at every meeting because of their recent history, and the entire board is involved in the review because they understand the implications of the decisions they make. Within 18 months, the organization had ended its year with 14% of their operating budget on the balance sheet. Entire board involvement in financial management allows for greater understanding of the financial aspects that affect your organizational health, better decision-making as the financial implications are taken into account, a greater level of accountability for financial management, and a lower likelihood of fraud as the entire board is focused on and knows the organization's numbers. Now, policies and procedures are critical here. And these are created to protect your organization against financial failure, to protect your organization against fraud, and to be able to detect it early, to prepare your organization for success and create a consistent financial management process, and to build trust with stakeholders and donors. Now, because of the far-reaching implications, financial policies and procedures need to include as many board members as possible to ensure transparency and trust. Now, there are written documents and handouts for you, and I can provide a number of additional ones if they would be helpful. But some of the key policies to consider are your financial systems and control. You want to ensure that no one person has control over an entire financial process. By way of example, I was brought into a large not-for-profit organization that had suffered a loss of over $1 million with their previous chief executive officer, who ended up serving time, in fact. And what we found was that the policies were weak. The day-to-day oversight was very strong. The board reviewed every single check that was cut. But the reality was they had no policy to ensure that no one person had control. So the same person, that chief officer, placed the order, received the goods, signed off on the goods, paid the invoice. Obviously, an opportunity for fraud. And again, it was only discovered after the individual took a vacation after many years. So key policies around financial systems and controls, key policies around your bank reconciliations to ensure that they reflect what actually happened. And then key policies around board level oversight, especially auditing. The auditor reports to the board, and everyone should feel comfortable asking questions, and perhaps even asking the auditor from time to time to take a deep dive into one particular area. And then again, financial policies around the instruments that you manage. So this includes, but isn't limited to, how your cash is handled, petty cash, checks, credit cards, online payment methods. You want to make sure that you've got policies in place and that these are regularly monitored. A serious responsibility, but one that can be handled well if handled carefully through financial literacy, appropriate policies and procedures, and holding everyone accountable. So next week, we're going to look at that third core responsibility, influence and securing resources to achieve your mission. And we're also going to look at assessment of the board and of you as an individual board member and how you can continue to develop as an individual and as a board after this course is over. Again, I look forward to having that conversation with you. And once again, don't hesitate to be in touch if I can provide you with any additional resources or additional information. Thanks very much.